Um, we were talking about your coaching aspirations before the break, and some numbers I'm sure you're aware of, but for the people listening who might not be aware of. So right now, as it stands, 82% of women's coaches at the D1, D2, and D3 level are white. I still call it Division One. I just will never get used to FBS and SES. Um, Almost 50% of the players at Power Five schools are Black women, yet Black women account for less than 15% of those head coaching positions. However, the SEC has five Black women who are head coaches out of the 14 schools in the SEC. From your vantage point, as you're just kind of getting your career started in coaching, what are some of the obstacles that you still see that Black women are facing as they try to become head coaches in the NCAA?
Well, I think it's just the usual pattern, right? Of I don't think that I think everybody's on such a short leash, like if we get a job, we're expected to turn it around immediately, whereas other people get more of a leeway. They may have a losing record or something, for a few years. Whereas if it's you're looking like, okay, I got to hurry up and turn things around because my job may be on the line. So I think unfortunately that's what I see the most, is that the lease is so short. Um, but the SEC is doing a fantastic job at that. I mean, we just had two Black women in the SEC championship game that have taken their programs to major heights. I mean, Kyra Elzy was the interim head coach and then became head coach. And look what she's done with Kentucky and winning the SEC championship yesterday. Dawn has, I mean, look at her. She's done it as a player and as a coach, and turned them into the Monstars from Space Jam. So I think the slogan for the SEC is it just means more, and I think the SEC is doing more in that regard because they're giving Black women a chance, and the leash is not as short. Where they're giving them a chance to build their programs up to show what we really can do, not only as players but as somebody that has now stepped into the coaching world and is giving back in that manner.
Um, Last you brought up Down Staley, who I'm old enough. I remember when she was a player. Um, uh, but she signed. I thought another important piece or component to her story. She signed a $22 million contract extension with South Carolina last October, right before this season started. What message did that send to see her get that kind of money from South Carolina?
I think Dawn is the epitome of if you can see her, you can beat her. She did it as a player, she's doing it as a coach. I think it's just a testament to what she has been able to do, the work that she's put in. So that to me just shows that that's what should have happened. Like I think a lot of people would have been surprised had it not happened just because of what she's done. I mean, when I was in college, she was there at South Carolina, but you didn't. They weren't what they are now. So I think she said a quote the other day. A lot of people see what you've done when you're at the top, but they don't see what it took to get you there. Something along those lines. Um, so I think Dawn is a testament to the type of work that you put in, and then the reward when you actually put the time in. So she just is somebody, when I look at what I want to be, she's a great example of that, because it's not even about the money for me. I just want to be able to get to the pinnacle of success that she's gotten to. And the great thing is that I know Dawn is not satisfied. She's going to keep being thirsty for what she has built, because she's going to try to keep making it better, if there is even a thing, because they are so good.
They are, but I thought even though I felt, of course you feel a little bad for her. Well, you probably don't, but you feel a little bad for her for losing,
I
But
still
I think
do.
it's yeah, okay, but it's still a great story for women's basketball, right?
Yeah.
Like because you have Kentucky, an emerging power in this space, and you have another Black woman who's able to show like look at what we can do. You were talking about when you were a player. Now, as a player, you won a national championship. And people need to understand you won a national championship at a time where a school like Texas A&M wasn't supposed to be winning a national championship. UConn was still very dominant. You had Notre Dame very dominant. How often do you think about that incredible year, that run, and what have you told your players about it?
I mean, that year was just destiny. So many people counted us out. I mean, I can remember going to the Final Four and doing the pregame pressers. a couple of days before the Final Four games had actually started, and we didn't get asked a lot of questions because everybody kept saying, y'all are the Cinderella. And we were like, y'all come to a practice. We ain't no none. The shoe been fitting, okay. So just going up against a Stanford, which I thought that year Stanford was the best team coming into the Final Four. I mean, UConn still had Maya Moore, Tiffany Hayes, they still had a squad, but Stanford to me was playing the best. And we had just got through playing Brittany Griner, having to beat them after playing them 4 times that year, going in to have to play Stanford. So I just think that we really put our school on the map, and it was good for the world to see somebody else on top because, at a certain point, you get to thinking, if I don't go to UConn or Notre Dame or Stanford, I'm not going to win. And so I think it was important and good for basketball for them to see that other schools out there are doing what it takes to try to reach that pinnacle, to get their schools to where UConn is, to where Stanford is. And so, I have a really big picture in the our practice gym of me celebrating in the Stanford game. And I tell our kids all the time just what it took for me to get there, how I didn't complain, how my team didn't complain, how we played together. So a lot of the stuff that I tell them from that year are just tips on how to be good teammates, because if you don't have a team, you can't, you're not going to make it to the conference tournament, let alone a Final Four. By March, you got to be working as a machine. And so that's what I try to tell my team.
Well, it's interesting because looking at how the women's game has evolved. I mean, I don't know. I think people do recognize this, particularly those who have been longtime fans, but even those who are just sort of peeping in and are a little bit more casual. What I see, the speed, the athleticism, the versatility from players now. When my first year as a reporter was 1997 as a professional, and I was covering women's basketball then. I was covering NC State, Carolina, and Duke, right? And so, because I think Duke had Alana Beard then, I think that was their big player. Chastity Melvin was still playing then, because that's how old I am. And they were great players, obviously. And '97 was the first year of the WNBA. But looking at where the game was then to now, it's just like it's unbelievable, the growth. Then you thought you would never see Tennessee lose. You know that you would never see UConn lose. And I look at all these teams now that you have South Carolina. Of course, Stanford is still there. Um, Kentucky, all these emerging teams. You all A&M. I mean, you guys have kind of been there. Arizona, like these are names that were not mentioned during that time. So, I mean, I guess when you look at the growth from even when you were a player until now, what's kind of some of the biggest changes you've seen with how the game has evolved?
Man, so many things, but I think the most glaring thing is just the athleticism, right? So, like, if you look at the WNBA, Jonquel Jones is a perfect example of the evolution of the game because she can legitimately play 1 through 5. And she's what, 6'6". So when you see that now, you see a lot of post players that are playing. It's a positionless game almost now, where you'll see post players bringing the ball up the floor. A lot of teams try to get to playing positionless basketball, where it's like, I don't need to look for a traditional 1 for an outlet. I can bring the ball up as the 5 player. That was not happening when I was in school. Every time Danielle Adams got the ball, she's looking for Sydney Colson and I to bring the ball up the floor. So I think that that's the main thing, is that you actually see post players. I'm put that in quotations because, like I said, it's almost positionless, where they're bringing the ball up, they're shooting threes, they got step back moves, they got handles. You're seeing so many aspects of the game in every type of player, no matter the height. And that's the major glaring difference in the game from the time that it started to now.
From a support standpoint, I think women's college basketball has definitely exploded, and really both professionally as well. But in terms of the popularity, the investment, but it's still not enough. Like there's no question about it. So where do you see the growth, and where do you see support for women's basketball kind of still lacking?
Well, I do think you still see the growth in the type of product we're putting out there, whether people watch it or not. I think that that's obviously still where we're lacking, because a lot of people don't necessarily still give it a chance, but we're putting a better product out there. So you have growth in the type of play that's being uh, being done out there, college and women and WNBA. But obviously, we still haven't gotten the viewership that we would like. It's growing. Last year, you look at the finals viewership numbers, the year before that, you're starting to see those numbers go up. But what are the numbers looking like just during the regular season, not just in a series where it's really good basketball? Because there's good basketball being played in the WNBA all summer. There's good basketball being played, in the SEC, in the Big Ten, all these conferences during regular seasons. There's still good basketball. But obviously, we see numbers go up during tournament time, March Madness time, because those are marketed differently. Whereas in the regular season, it's just, okay, there's a game coming on tonight at 7, So product is better, but we still haven't gotten the viewership to where we need it to. I mean, college basketball, women's college basketball, that's always going to be, I think, ahead right now of the WNBA, because people just feel like, once people go to the league, it's like people fall off or something. I have no idea, but they don't seem to follow their favorite college players that well to the WNBA, but they're going to continue to watch college. And I'm not sure why that is.
Well, I mean, it is a little surprising, especially because I'll be frank that there are times, and I covered college basketball for 6 years. There are times when I look at the NBA where I'm just like, where did that player go to school? I have no idea because they're there for a cup of coffee and they're gone. At least in the women's game, they're there 3, maybe 4 years. So you know exactly who they are by the time they get to the WNBA. And to me, that makes it much easier to follow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's just because of when the WNBA season is. It's purposely during a time where the sports activity professionally is not as high. It's not going up against the NFL or anything like that. But, I think it'll get there. I mean, I definitely think, one of the things that kind of came out of the bubble was the fact that the viewership for the WNBA was through the roof. And
Yes.
I think that exposed, kind of a lot of people to how good that the product is. I guess as a woman who's grown up in this game, though, is it in some ways still frustrating to still be having the same conversations about support?
Yeah, for sure. Because it's like we keep getting better and better, and it goes back to the we can never satisfy anybody. When we actually y'all say we didn't dunk, well now we got people dunking. So
Hmm.
why don't we have people watching, our game? You guys watching college and you enjoy the college game, these are the same players playing in the WNBA. So why would you think that there's a drop off there when it's 144 of the best playing in the WNBA. So it's gonna be good basketball. So I don't know what it is, but it's definitely frustrating to see that we're still having conversations of, all right, should we lower the rim? Should we do like people are posing so many different questions, and it's like it's just basketball. We're just women, and there's an NBA, there's a WNBA, just two different genders. The game is still the same.